Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Thoughtful Leaders, an initiative under Thoughts on Education by Collegedunia.com. Collegedunia is one of India's leading education portals catering to students, parents, and education industry players who are seeking information on exams, cutoffs, student reviews, or applying to colleges. This initiative is to enrich the user experience here at Collegedunia.com and try to bridge the long new gap between the vision of top management and the student. Today, we have with us Professor Aditya Kashyap, Associate Dean Academics at ISME. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
So, I'd like to begin this session, sir, by enlightening our audience with a brief introduction of yours. Professor Aditya Kashyap is an economist by training and has pursued a master's in economics and public policy from the reputed University of Queensland, Australia. He has a diverse set of professional experience ranging from hedge fund taxes at Ernst & Young to financial analysis and inventory control at Cardiff, Australia. Professor Aditya has also taught economics and statistics to undergrad students and master's students by his stay in Australia. He currently teaches a wide range of courses under the broad domain of economics, political economy, and statistics at the undergraduate and the postgraduate levels at ISME, School of Management and Entrepreneurship. Alongside teaching, Aditya Kashyap has successfully curated and launched a postgraduate program in business analytics and data science. He also heads the Center of Economic Policy at ISME. This caters to creating a community for economists, policymakers, and government bureaucrats, propelling macroeconomic discussions, intellectual stimulation, and advocating a policy think tank. Mr. Aditya Kashyap has a keen interest in fine arts, photography, rock climbing, and road running, while the economic never sleeps. So, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Beginning with the interview, my first question to you is, how has your journey been in the education industry so far? Could you please share your learnings from your experience in the corporate as well as in the education industry?
Sure. So I feel my journey in the education industry has been quite diverse in the sense that there's a lot of different things that I've been involved with ever since I started with the industry. So of course you start teaching and then you get on to many different roles and responsibilities when it comes to administration. But what I would like to highlight is I think we are in an era where we are looking at constant change. There's so much of sort of changes that are coming through, and what we talk about new age education and the industry 4.0, which is so volatile by itself. So I think one key learning that I would say, even in the education industry, is about being agile. I think agility is one thing that kind of really takes us forward, and we are always forward thinking. In the industry, if I had to really compare my days back working in the corporate, I think it has really taught me a lot, and I think I bring a lot of anecdotes to class as well. And that practical experience has certainly, enhanced my classroom teaching, because those examples and the anecdotes that we bring from the corporate really kind of enhances management training, or what we called as management studies at the classroom level. So I think from a learning point of view, agility and being forward thinking, because when you've been working with the industry, you have a very calculated mindset, and you're always worried about, not worried, but you're always after numbers, and you're looking at different numbers, measuring different variables, measuring different attributes. I mean, most of the times I was in finance, so I was always either doing taxes, or I was doing inventory, or I was doing some budgets. And because you become so number conscious, your mindset is also very quantitative, inclined. What has happened in the education sector is it gives you an opportunity to think forward, because the real question is, like in cricket, you say the real question in the dressing room. So over here, the real question in our sort of classrooms and boardrooms is, well, what do we teach that would cater to the future of our country, or the future of what is going to be the future in these companies, or in these bigger sectors and the industry 4.0 where people are going to be working. So I think that one biggest I think shift that I've been looking at is in my mindset is to do with thinking about the future, being a little more conscious about taking the right step towards how what we design today and how is that going to help our students, because curriculum design, pedagogy, all of this really affects and really enhances each and every student's lives, be it an entrepreneur as well, right? So I think that is one thing that is very evidently stayed with me is about being agile and about being futuristic. So thinking about the future and acting on that.
Okay, sir. So this brings me to the next question. Being the Associate Dean Academics at ISME, Mumbai, could you please elaborate on your roles and responsibilities towards the students as well as the institute?
Sure. So as the name suggests, I think I would go by the later half of the name, which is academics. So my roles and responsibilities are typically to do with everything in academics, right? So it starts from really designing the curriculum and seeing to that the curriculum is a good fit, because it's like you're designing something and that's going to run for a tenured period. So when we design undergraduate curriculums or when we design postgraduate curriculums, these curriculums are running for at least 3 years or 2 years or even a year long curriculum. And I think it starts from there and really thinking about, what goes into curriculum design. So my forte and something I really, really enjoy doing is curriculum design, because that gives me the chance to really think deep and think wider in terms of what's happening around me, around us, and how can we cater best. I think from there on, it's all about academic continuity. And I think the pandemic has taught us the lesson that, academic continuity is one of the key factors. So making sure that the curriculum is being run within the time frame that it was, promised or stipulated to be running. The assessments are happening in time. Even looking at saying new ways of teaching. We've been teaching online on Zoom. Can we overcome the exam? How do we engage students? So these are different attributes. I mean, all of this goes into the pedagogy that we use to teach students. And of course, making sure that once your curriculum design is in place, you've tracked your curriculum, you made sure that the academics is run smoothly. And then, of course, the final results where it's not only about the students, but also giving that feeling to a student that, hey, you know what, yes, we have learned something and this can be applied and used. So I think most of my role and responsibility over here is I wear multiple hats, to be honest, with one title that I have, but there are multiple hats, to be honest, which kind of encapsulates the entire process of academic design to academic learning and academic application, if I have to put it in a nutshell.
Okay, so my next question to you, sir, is how do you try to bring in a practical approach towards subjects for the students and make it industry oriented?
Right. So that's a very good question, and also it's very personal and relative to each and every teacher or a professor in class, because to me, what is practical is really living the subject, right? Really living the topic in the classroom session, right? So if you talk about me, I think most of the times I end up using my anecdotes from my work experience that I've had with the industry. So I think that's one of the elements that has helped me. But I'm sure there are many professors who start off directly into, classroom teaching, and then they have very, very many different creative ways of bringing in, practical exposure. But over here, I think if I had to quote some examples, I think one of the ways because I mostly teach economics, and economics is more number driven, and it's more numerical in nature. Of course, you need a lot of discussion also, because I teach subjects like policy and game theory, where you get into discussions and debates within the classroom. And I think bringing in that practical exposure is to be a little more creative. So, for example, if I had to just give you an example, I do this project with my students where I teach them something like as simple as elasticity of demand, or price elasticity of demand. And I tell them, go around your house and click pictures of about 20 different products, right? So 20 different things in your house, you click pictures, and you think about the product, and you tell me what is the price elasticity of demand for that very product, because you have it in your house. There's something that made you think to buy that. So how do you do this? Students ask me, okay, how do we do this? So I tell them, think, why did you buy that product? And would you pay the price that you paid for that product? So this is as simple as a classic example of practical learning of a very theoretical / number driven subject like economics, right? So there are various different examples, and especially being at the corporate hub of Mumbai, because our physical campus is actually in Lower Parel in Mumbai, and we call the entire city as a lab to us, because there's so many projects within economics, business, management, entrepreneurship, finance, marketing, that our students are mostly put on the field to task. So they are actually told to go out and explore, and their projects actually involve collecting primary data, maybe analyzing the data, talking to people. So that's the real sense of looking at things around you and getting that practical exposure. So what we call as experiential learning is our key component. That's one of our main things in our pedagogy that we use. So I think most subjects, I would say, revolve around experiential learning. However, there are a few subjects which or maybe few sessions which are completely case driven. I think business is so volatile, and I think management studies has changed over a period of time, and most of our professors, I think almost all professors, use diverse set of case studies, caselets, and because these different cases give exposure to students to different scenarios and different business cases, that gives them that practical exposure to how to be working in a real environment. So that's one of the main things that really kind of brings in that practical simulation within the classroom.
Okay, sir. So my next question to you is, how do you help your students to cope up with the competition, which is so high in the outside world?
Right. So I think this is again a very personalized effort in terms of coping up with competition, because competition and preparing for competition is very different from learning coursework. So it's more internal, and it's based on coaching and mentoring, right? Because we differentiate between teaching, coaching, and mentorship. So when you're coaching or when you're mentoring a student, you don't really teach new knowledge, right? So, like, for that matter, if I had to use a case in hand, now when Sachin Tendulkar bats, I'm sure his coach doesn't tell him how to bat, right? He bats because he knows how to bat. That's the knowledge he has, but the coach just corrects him, right? So competition is, I know it is because of the increasing sort of demand of high caliber work and intelligent minds coming together. I think competition is more about coaching and mind training. So there is a very important element in all our programs, and not only on all our programs, but I think this is something very unique where each one of us, each professor, we have a set of students who we coach and mentor on the side. And these are all, internal attributes that really need to be looked into. This is not about academic knowledge. This is not about being the smartest person, in the room. But it's all about getting to know those key characteristics. Those are probably values that stay on longer. integrity, probably honesty, also your work ethics, punctuality. These are things that are only internal. You can't teach someone to probably be punctual at all times, but you can probably make someone aware that this is the key benefit of doing so. So I think we do this by constant coaching and mentoring, and also we have a set of different team members who handle a lot of different students who need some special attention as well. And I think in terms of competition, the best way to prepare is to actually look out what's happening, right? Be alert, be aware what's around you, and be sensitive. Be sensitive. So social sensitive. Be sensitive to people around you. Be sensitive to new product launches. Probably be sensitive to the news, the politics. So I think once you are globally aware, about all your surroundings, I think that really helps you gauge as to what's happening in the real world. And as I said, that actually helps us as being a coach or a mentor to our students to really get ahead with the competition. So there's a lot of training that happens. So we do a lot of group discussion trainings. We give them extempores, and we are like, okay, today's class is for you. You are going to teach the class. So that gives you that confidence to stand up and prepare for a class and come in and teach, right? So there is a lot of different attributes, that we get into from the psychological side of things. And I think this comes in with a lot of, our conversations with the industry, because we are very closely related to a lot of industries, and we do talk to them, a lot of different companies, and, we listen to a lot of global leaders and really understand, so if I had to quote an example, if you look at all the greatest leaders today, Mr. Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, or, Indra Nooyi, and probably even, Apple CEO, founder, everyone is moving to be, what we call as leaders, but they're actually very humble people. Right. So what is it that is standing out today is really humility, right? So you're really understanding, empathizing with your employees, empathizing with your people. So empathy and, is one of the key things that really brings out the best. So there are a lot of things like this. These are all psychological training, and obviously knowledge, mindset, and competency. These are the three things that we focus on that makes a holistic sort of development in a student's personality overall. So knowledge, competency, and mindset is what we are focusing on.
Okay, sir. So my next question to you is, in your opinion, what is the future of management education in India? Is the demand as strong it was few years ago, or is it waning down?
Management education is still as important as it used to be. And with management education, businesses are ever changing. The only thing constant is change, right? So with the influx of technology, with the influx of data, I think a lot of different B schools are rethinking their approach to management studies. But I feel management education is very important. It is very vital to an existence of a company, of a big company or a small company, because end of the day, you could be an entrepreneur or a founder, but you would still need someone to manage your different domains, different departments, and your company overall, right? So management, or the entire management education, by what we call, is I think the demand for that has been increasing. But what we really need to look into is what is good education, right? So how do you really define what is good education, and how do you make cutting edge leaders, in leaders of the future? And I think the focus of management education now has been mostly shifting to one, obviously, technology, because we need to understand how to work with machines, work alongside machines, and not only keep thinking that we are at some point in time going to be non-existent, because you always have to coexist with machines, right? Second thing is leadership is something, yes, can be taught, can be trained, but then they are born leaders as well, right? So management education really focuses on, a lot of different attributes. I mean, we've been looking at, age-old curriculums of management education. But what I mean to say is, when you look at 10 years, 20 years old curriculum, and you look at, these kids who are just graduating out of college, who are probably born with, iPods and AirPads in their hands, we are talking about cutting edge technology as well. And I think with the change, there is a need to bring in new age education as well. So crisis management, conflict management, ethics, I mean, this is all that stays. But what we really need to think is, how do we integrate technology with management going forward? And I think the demand for management education is I assume should be growing in the near future as well, because I feel management education is one of the most important education, to be sort of any professional that would probably want to be succeeding or be successful in the career would sort of want management education, or probably what I say as cutting edge management education.
Okay, sir. So my next question to you is in continuation with the previous one. Do you see any trend in the MBA graduates for opting for entrepreneurship? And what are driving forces behind it? How does Isme Mumbai prepare its students for such career choices?
Okay, so I'll answer this in two bits. So one is MBA graduates opting for starting up and being entrepreneurs. So I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs also who are opting for an MBA, right? So if you look at the other way around, there was this entire time where a lot of youngsters would think, because Steve Jobs, because Bill Gates, and because Mark Zuckerberg, these are all the big shot billionaires who are running the latest sort of software companies or tech companies in the Silicon Valley, and most of them happen to be a dropout. And that also encouraged a lot of people to understand the importance of education. So there are two sides to look at it. One is you can think, they're all dropouts. So, why do they need to, I'm not saying all, but few of them. Why do they need to sort of, really study? But at the same time, with the increase in entrepreneurial ventures, I think there has been an increase in the awareness of education, or good education for that matter. So, it's very likely to understand, yes, if you're doing higher studies, if you're, doing your MBA and suddenly you have an idea and you want to take that idea forward. Probably earlier were the days where you would just, reach out to family, reach out to friends and say, I have this idea, get some funding, get something started, and there you would go on. But nowadays, what we are looking at as a trend is most B schools have actually started encouraging that as well, right? Because I think B schools have come up with what we call as a ready kit to really help these students to, take their or launch their idea. So we call it as a launch pad. And I think it is also a good thing that, ideas are actually respected and students are given an opportunity to do so. I think it'll be difficult for me to say if there has been a change or a shift from MBA graduates to starting up. I would say, of course, if government policies, or, if your sort of country policies support new businesses like the Make in India campaign, which probably infused a lot of youngsters to start up. And also there were different financial aids given to young entrepreneurs to start up. I think that shifted a lot of, trend to be starting up rather than studying. But at the same time, what I have observed is that there is a lot more awareness on good education. So students are actually wanting to study further. And that's why I said, there are a lot of entrepreneurs, founders, co-founders who actually, after starting up, happen to join MBA programs as well, right? So there are two distinct things according to me. I think education is learning is lifelong, and I think that entire mindset of learning is lifelong has stuck with us, and that has made us realize that uh, you know. I think any professional degree, for that matter, or anything that you learn today can stay with you lifelong, and it's only up to us how do we actually apply and utilize the same. So I think that's my first bit. I think your second bit was about what we do at Isme. Um, so ISME, if you notice the last letter, that stands for entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship is kind of the DNA of our school all the time. And be it in economics classes, marketing classes, or entrepreneurship classes by themselves, I think we focus a lot more on entrepreneurial thinking, which is thinking on your feet, being resilient, being able to think fast, calculative. Also, what's your risk appetite, and that is kind of uh, just gets you to create a mindset, what we call as an entrepreneurial mindset, right? So at Isme, yes, entrepreneurship, as I said, is one of the key courses that we do in our undergraduate program. And then there's a postgraduate program also, which focuses on entrepreneurship, which is known as so we call it the MBE and not the MBA. For us, it is the Management, Business and Entrepreneurship. So that's what we call our program. And also in the 2-year AICT program, which is the PGDM programs, we have a major specialization in entrepreneurship. So apart from finance and marketing, there's a specialization. So the second thing is, how do we teach entrepreneurship? There's a lot of conversation. Can entrepreneurship be taught, or are entrepreneurs born? But as I said, there's a lot that goes into creating an entrepreneur's mindset. So entrepreneurial thinking is one of our, keystone focus areas for most of us. And we have created our own ecosystem with a launchpad where we invest a lot of our time in student ideas, doing MVPs, minimum viable products, probably giving them a platform to come and showcase their MVPs, maybe getting them introduced to angel investors, something like what you would have seen at the Shark Tank. They're student-run initiatives, they're student-run clubs that do it on their own. And a lot of the times we also meet a lot of parents who come from family managed business backgrounds, and they are all very motivating and cooperating when it comes to their students actually wanting to start up on their own. And I think slowly and steadily we are moving away from the time where there were only two career options, which was engineering or doctors. And today, when a 18-year-old or a 17-year-old says that, hey, what, I have an idea and I want to start up, I think there is some confidence, and people have started believing in those words. And that's why the entire ecosystem is coming together. So I think it's not only about Isme, I think it's about the entire ecosystem we've been able to create, and due to which we've had many student startups as well. I mean, it can be food. So we have student startups in food, we have student startups in retail and design, we have student startups in tech as well. So there's a lot that is happening on the ground, and I think it's ever evolving and ever changing. And as I said, it's a full package, from ideation to conceptualization to actually, creating an MVP, prototyping, and probably even experimenting, going out and selling and making revenues. There are students who started up in their first or second years, and they've still been studying with us while actually running their own startups on the side. And by startups, I mean to say that they're actually clocking in revenues. So I think that is one of the biggest, achievements for at least our entrepreneurship professors to have been able to done so.
So my last question to you for the day is, what valuable advice would you like to give to the students for them to have a prosperous career ahead?
Okay, so I think in my view and in my experience, for students who are, just doing their undergraduate studies or in their 20s mostly, I think it's very important to cast a very wide net, in the beginning, because a lot of students tend to feel that, oh, this is the specialization I want, this is the kind of salary I want, because a lot of students are taken away by the glamour of the kind of jobs that they're looking into. But I think students should try whatever comes their way. It's I'm not saying it is difficult to get something. I know there are a lot of students who are very focused and they really want to do. So there are students who say, no, I just want to get into investment banking and that is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But, I feel that students, all the students at that age group tend to miss out on all the other opportunities that are around them and might exist, and they wouldn't even know that exists without having tried them, right? So my advice is, go all in, try a lot of different things, stay focused at what you do. And by staying focused, I mean, is giving your best, giving everything. Don't think about the end result, but think about the journey that you're getting into. So I think that is very important. And what we call is once you have a broad experience, after a couple of years, after having worked in the industries, then you look into where do you want to specialize, right? So we call it the T shape, right? So that's a T shape. So you get your broad experience in your initial years, and then suddenly you specialize into something and go deep into it, right? So I think that is very important. And I think what should be the focus over here is that everyone should try their hands at different things and not restrict themselves. And I also, come across a lot of students who have a fixed expectation, in terms of monetary expectation, in terms of my office expectation, what will I look like expectation. I'm going to work in the corporate, the building is going to be so tall, I'm going to be suited up and I'm going to go up and down. But what I mean to say is dirty your hands, go through the hustle in the first few years. And I'm not using the word struggle, but go through the hustle in the first few years, because the better you hustle, the more you dirty your hands in the first few years, you will get a practical insight of the kind of work that you're doing and where you're doing, right? So that hustle in the beginning is very important. And I use my own anecdote, from the past. I used to work in a facility plant where we used to manufacture and produce edible oil while I was working at Cargill. And while working there, I got although I was working in finance, but the numbers only made sense to me because I could see the production happening right in front of me. I was in touch with the farmers, I was in touch with the traders, I was in touch with the production facility, I was in touch with the maintenance guys. I knew the machines that were working, I knew what came in, what went out. So that's how all the numbers made sense to me. And I always say this, in the first few years, just go all in, try everything. Don't have a very fixated mindset. Don't be close to things, be open-minded and hustle on, in the first few years. And I think that is what will create a very strong base. And, of course, that will lead to a successful future as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. This was certainly an insightful session.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
So everyone, this was Professor Aditya Kashyap, Associate Dean Academics at ISME, Mumbai, on today's episode of Thoughtful Leaders, an initiative under Thoughts on Education by Collegedunia.com. So thank you very much, sir, once again for giving us your time, speaking to us amidst a busy schedule. We look forward to interacting with you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.